Salutations, greetings, konnichiwa, Lord have mercy. Today we're going to be talking about justice. Justice! Yes, not trying too hard. Justice, because I've got the t-shirt. This is what a men's rights activist looks like. It's not the one from the conference, but it's one I wore on the first day of the conference. A big wow, eh? And the wristband. Justice for men and boys, j4mb.co.uk. Better put that one on. Let's not be too self-conscious either, because I am a bit self-conscious, to tell you the truth. I'm in one of these. This is part of a series of videos where I'm going to try to wed such issues as men's issues with issues of cluster B and other psychological issues. But I'm going to be talking about mothers as well as fathers, and Erin Pitsey in her lecture actually spoke a little bit about that, or considerable amounts about that. I mean, she ran women's refuges and was saying how motherhood is not a career option, but morally in society that has been a view permeated, and I agree with that. I think it does damage us morally, the wider morality of this country, if you have you diminish the need to be a mother for a mother's sake, if you like the sensitivity and care that goes into it. Well, if you just say it's an option, you've got to go to work, then you're not going to be as caring and close and considerate a mother. You're not even going to have the time, are you? And I don't want to enslave people. I don't want to take away their choices. I think if you're like my mother, I think if you have any doubts, which people like that never do because they have cluster B personality disorders, or too many traits, too much of their own baggage from their own childhoods and backgrounds, whether it be a histrionic personality disorder, a malignant borderline, it's a funny term, borderline, isn't it, but emotional dysregulation, I think it's perhaps is synonymous with that, and antisocial personality disorder, which is psychopathy, sociopathy, covers those, I think, or narcissistic personality disorder, all those traits. Women can be narcissists, psychopaths, but I think the more predominant is histrionic, or more prevalent in women than men is histrionic and malignant borderline, which I think, given my mother's temper and tendency to caprice and attention seeking and the discomfort that I've had with things to do with sex, or feelings I've had and around her, well, am I sure that's her, not me? Well, I think I am. And also remembering the way people are, like from early in life, and how it's never referenced, and how I look at myself and how, well, I never got started with that. I'm 35 years old, so how can you have affectionate parents unless you're a total retard and not really do that yourself? Apologies if that causes offence, as it sounds a little too ableist, but I mean, I do have my own problems in that department, or have had, supposedly, so I've got a get out of jail card. But t-shirt, eh? Get a load of that, Theresa May. What you should be wearing. That's her told, isn't it? She's a bit of a follower, isn't she? At least I hope she is. I mean, now this Brexit business is on. If there were more people wearing a t-shirt like this, maybe she would have worn a t-shirt like this. With this Brexit, which she didn't back, did she? And she's not elected. She'll probably honour it all, because she'll honour it. It's honourable to honour it. Or they'll give some spiel like that, some clever spiel. As I was saying, I mean, if you're the sort of parent who wants to have a career, then have a career, and don't just stay out of it. Keep the hell away from parenthood, from kids. Don't do it yourself. Have a nice career. If you like rushing off to work, do one of those crappy things that's helpful. It's not that helpful, doesn't really help the world, but I mean it does help in a way, doesn't it? Especially if it's some sort of piece of piss that doesn't even involve psychology or philosophy, and you can just lie and intimidate people. Maybe she didn't do that, but it's more like you duck out of the way, don't you? And you just say impressionable things all the time. Because kids do not need the adrenaline of caprice. Kids do not need the adrenaline. I don't mean the glamour model. No, they don't need eruptions. They don't need emotional eruptions. Unless they're positive, unless they do something positive, and they probably don't either. Not anger, not aggression, not God, you can't believe what's happening to me now. They don't have to actually use those words, but that's what they're saying, isn't it? If you suddenly shout about something, then or complain, well, you're saying my problems are I can't control myself. Or it's because you can't control yourself, and you're saying, look at me. And they often say things like, this person didn't like me. From the start, they didn't like me. I wouldn't do that. And it's sort of, yeah, but you don't, nobody deserves to be ignored. I'm with you on that one. And nobody deserves to be condemned and treated like scum just because you happen to be there. Nobody deserves prejudice. Well, not ultimately. We all make some judgment. But at the same time, where's the doubt? Where's the explanation? Why do you think they did that? Why don't you ask yourself, you don't have to care what people think. That's the mistake I make. Well, right brain people think emotionally are like that. Or excessively right brain people. I'm a bit of left brain too. I like my facts. But I mean, I flunked science in the end. I was doing well with it, but no. I'm not especially analytical and everything. Can't seem to focus my mind on everything. Can't seem to get all the details. Sometimes I do, but often I don't. I'm a singer. I'm a speaker. Repeat things, quotes from things. That's why they think I'm autistic. Supposedly out of context, even though to speak is a beautiful thing, isn't it? I'm not always very good at it when I'm out, especially when I'm out of practice, as I have been being so isolated and no contact. But it's also brought benefits to my brain, being away from people who act like, well, I swear. No, maybe not. Maybe I won't swear. Maybe not. Oh, the funny stress I put on words, the rhythm, the pitch, such as Asperger's. Asperger syndrome, Asperger, and Asperger, the Austrian from the 1940s. As I said, why don't you have, like in the case of my mum, where's the doubt? If I'm upset by somebody, or somebody gives me a negative reaction, I do it too much, but I wonder, well, what have I done then? There's a certain element of soul searching. Everybody has to be a rounded individual. You have to have a certain amount of soul searching to say, well, maybe it isn't just happening to me, so it must be wrong if it's happening to me. You have to ask, why is it happening to me? And maybe ask somebody else, why do you think that happened to me? And why is this person just an absolute bitch, or and not a nice person to me? I mean, not just, well, that's the way it is. It's a very patronising, impressionable way to speak, lacking in detail. And there's the attention grabbing and some of the habits, the crossing of sexual boundaries you may remember in your life are really, well, they're sexual abuse. Maybe they're not more overt, obvious sexual abuse. Things like if you saw nudity, things like if you saw sex or heard sex, things like if somebody touched you where they shouldn't touch you, maybe not very often, but it happened. Things like where people were very strange and embarrassing maybe didn't say anything even, but it was still embarrassing about masturbation, when you know that person has like been rather too exhibitionary about their sexuality, as if it was ideal when it can't be ideal, as if it was only beautiful love when it can't only be beautiful love, and then they don't even stick to that idea of what it is because they're so inconsistent and impressionable. It's just, get the attention on me. And those are textbook, I think, if there is a completely right textbook, definitions of histrionic personality disorder. Maybe there's all a load of other stuff to do with having affairs and stuff like that. Now, I've never known my parents to have affairs. Maybe seen them flirt a bit. But it makes you wonder, like, why would they or why wouldn't they? Apart from that, if it was full blown, I'm guessing there would be more affairs would figure somewhere. A bit promiscuous by the sounds of it before she was married. In fact, she says quite annoyingly, she travelled around, she went to Africa, and she said, that's when I had my boyfriends, silly grin, in Africa. Says that quite recently, you think? So are you telling me you're a slut? I mean, you're entitled to have them, but what about them? What about them? And she said, look, you know, what does it mean to have relationships? There's nothing meaningful. It's embarrassing. They go through their old boyfriends, and it's bad enough they did it the first time. Joke there. Anyway, see you everyone.